Good morning, everybody, and welcome to, we'll call it Saturday Conversations with Jason Mackey, our workshopped name of a podcast here. The gentleman on my other side, right, left, whatever, needs no introduction, and his name is right there on your screen. You know him well. You know him better than me, Larry Richert from KDKA Radio. He's done everything in this city. I'm thrilled for this episode. We're going to talk about so many things Pittsburgh sports. Larry, what's going on, man? How are you?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jason Mackey. You know what? I had a very extreme revelation recently. So I'm a graduate of North Allegheny High School, and I was asked to MC the Distinguished Alumni event recently. And I looked at the resumes of the people being honored, and it was like doctor this, surgeon this, PhD this, MBA this. And then I realized I've been doing the same thing since I was in high school, and that's morning announcements. Very sobering, Jason.
Well, I mean, you were in high school, Larry, what, 5-6 years ago? I mean,
yeah, right after they got electricity at North Allegheny High School.
Stop it.
You know what? Phil Hillgrove always has a great line, and I love this. He said, "I've been around so long, the Dead Sea was just sick."
Oh, my goodness. That's really good. That's really good. Well, that's sort of the tack that I've been taking with this podcast, having on, familiar, legendary names. I'm sure you'll bristle at that, but people that talk a little Pittsburgh sports, talk a little bit about your career. I think people really want to learn things. This will make you feel old. I grew up watching you, Larry. I grew up watching you and Shumway on KDKA TV News. I thought it was fantastic what you guys did, and it's been even better getting to know you on this side of the business as well.
Well, I appreciate that, and based on the fact that you're a writer, not extinguished, distinguished writer. The reason Shumway and I ended up on KDKA TV in the morning together for an extended period of time was there was a Pittsburgh press strike then, and people tuned, and we did everything like obituaries. We did with music. I mean, we tried to create an environment where it was basically a newspaper on TV, and it actually did very well because people missed their papers, and of course they still read about a lot of things they find out through you guys.
Yeah.
The Gazette.
We still miss papers, the printed edition. The world changing though, man.
I'll tell you what, my Thursday edition of the Post-Gazette, I'm a subscriber. And most importantly, the Sunday paper, I'm a traditionalist. I love to get up and, spread out the Sunday paper with a cup of coffee, and then I'll watch the CBS Sunday morning show, which I think is really nice format, one of the best shows on TV. So my newspaper is still very important to me.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that, Larry. Got a great show ahead. We're going to talk a little Pittsburgh sports in kind of a traditional sense. I want to talk to Larry about his path, all that he's done, get into that a little bit. Larry, as you know, he does all kinds of stuff, but he is the voice of Acrisure Stadium, Pitt Radio, pregame show host on the Panthers Radio Network, obviously TV and radio responsibilities as well, very active in charity stuff around the community. We'll get into all of that. And then the third segment, I want to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart, Larry's heart, the Bradenton, Anna Maria Islands area down there with pitchers and catchers reporting this week. I thought it would be a lot of fun to get into that. First, want to remind you this show is brought to you by Edgar Snyder and Associates. If you're injured in an accident, you're probably wondering what's next. For over 40 years, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped injury victims answer that question. Whether it's gathering evidence, collecting medical records, or dealing with insurance companies, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped over 75,000 people handle what's next. Call 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit edgarsnyder.com for a free consultation. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. All right, Larry, thank you. Thank you. It is not you. I'm not going to try to be you, but that's all right. So whose name are you going to be calling at Acrisure Stadium this year under center? Who do you think?
Wow.
I couldn't not transition that way, but I wanted to just kick it around Pittsburgh sports-wise with you. And to me, that's the biggest topic going around right now. Nobody really knows, but we can speculate.
Well, that's a multi-million-dollar question.
I know.
Honestly, it doesn't seem like Russell Wilson and Justin Fields will return. And if it's not one or the other, then who? And we found out recently that there's been interest in finding out who else is available that could come help this team now. I think we all know you have to have a franchise quarterback to compete at the highest level. We saw that in the playoffs, who ended up in the Super Bowl, the teams that were getting there, and the Steelers, with the tail off after being 10-3, they got to find somebody, and people appreciate Big Ben because, for a long time you kind of took him for granted. So it's hard to say at this point, but it seems like Omar Khan, Coach Tomlin, and team are looking very hard to try to find the right person that fits. I'd be happy with Justin Fields. I thought he did a really good job, and really when he was taken out, he was on a pretty hot roll. His numbers were good.
Yeah.
He's got some growth, but he's the youth that you need for the future. So if he could develop, and I think if you put him in there, give him the keys and let him roll. But it's hard to say who's going to be there when we get the summer camp.
Yeah, to me, you need that mobility, Larry. You need to be able to move out of the pocket, just the way the NFL is. Look at the playoffs. Look at what types of teams and quarterbacks are having success. I want to see them kind of entrust at the field, see where it goes. It's a tricky one, though. I think about, Fields going to free agency. Is that something he would want? Do they try to get ahead of that and get a contract done? I mean, all things that they're going to be considering for sure. As someone who's been around here, this is a little bit of a different question or talking point. Does it ever amaze you how much we talk about the Steelers and weigh their every move and relate things back to Mike Tomlin and chew on this just time after time? I mean, it's fun, but what's kind of your viewpoint on how much we talk about this team?
That's a great question because it has been exponential in terms of the interest over the years keeps building. And, regardless of the Steelers' record, they keep showing up in droves everywhere around the country in Steeler bars. Steelers Nation is huge, and the Steelers have relationships sanctioned by the NFL with Mexico, Germany, and Ireland.
Yeah.
Just right there. Steelers are going to play a regular season game in Ireland. The whole city is abuzz. And even though I work in news talk and we're not the sports station like the Fan, when the Steelers do something, it's news in this town. And it's just a collective community way to rally around something, I think, that's generational in many cases. Your dad, your grandpa, you went to a game with them, you're doing that with your kids now. And just the whole atmosphere in the NFL, too, has blossomed into this juggernaut where everything they do, they've created a viewing event around. And so what's crazy, as you know, in this town, from the end of the Steelers season, after people are done griping about it.
They're done griping? When did they stop griping?
If you don't win the Super Bowl, they're griping.
Yeah.
And that's the other 31 teams anyway.
Yeah.
Especially here. The daily analysis. Right now, it's February. Why are we worried about doing mock drafts?
I know, Larry. I know.
And there are no right or wrong answers in the moment. And now we're going to host the draft a year from April here in the region. If you have thought you've seen it all, you ain't seen nothing yet. So it's going to continue. And, we just love our team, love our Sundays or whatever day of the week they're playing.
And now basically any day but Tuesday, it seems like.
Well, don't say that because
I know, right?
They'll find a day. I remember during COVID, they kept bumping a game with the Ravens till we ended up playing on a Wednesday, and it was the most inactives I've ever seen. It was.
Yeah. I'm remembering this now. Yeah.
It was almost like replacement football, especially for the Ravens. They were missing so many people. So we've lived through a lot. We lived through one of the most divisive times politically, the whole process leading up to the election, and then some. The one thing that's fun is to get together as a community and, root for the Steelers.
Yeah, no doubt. And it just it never ceases to amaze me how much we obsess over this stuff and love it. But yeah, it beats worrying about real problems, I suppose. Hey, one other thing I wanted to ask you about with your role in Pitt football and the radio network or whatever, I did want to at least touch briefly on the season. I know there's been a lot of talk about, is this a successful season? Is this not a successful season? I look at some of what emerged from that, Eli Holstein, Desmond Reid, et cetera. I think they found some really important pieces to that team going into next season. Just how would you look back on this Pitt season going into next one? In football specifically, what did you like that you saw?
Well, in college football, as you know, Jason, there's never been a time when there's been more change, and that is transfer portal, NIL. It's the Wild West. At some point, they got to figure it out, get some guardrails in place. Sure. But as it is right now, a team's destiny can change really season to season. It's not like the old days. So Pitt only won 3 games the previous year. So you look, hey, they won 7 this year. That's a step. But that was 7-0 and lost the last 6, trending into this season. And then you've got to find a way to get some anchors like Eli Holstein and Desmond Reid, and then build around that. And it's hard to say because now in the ACC, you have Bill Belichick in North Carolina. Who would ever thought? This is crazy. But Pat Narduzzi in his 10 years, he came here, promised to win a championship, and he did, the ACC championship. But glory is fleeting. What are you doing for me now? And so it's hard to predict for anybody unless you're really those top tier teams that got to let a lot of NIL money and they can buy players. But Pitt will be competitive. Yeah, it was a tough way to end the season. They had a chance in multiple overtimes to win their bowl game. That didn't happen. That would have helped, but it really wouldn't have changed that much. So they just showed off some recently acquired players at Pitt. And Coach Narduzzi, I like the way he handles his men. He gets quality people in the program. You never hear anything really negative about the players themselves as individuals. They're good guys. They work hard, and I expect them to be very competitive and expect them to win more than 7 games.
All right, Larry, we're going to take a short break. There's a message from the Bradenton Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, but I want to get into your path, where you started out, those dark days, I guess in this case, quite literally, of North Allegheny without electricity, going on to Clarion College, and why you chose the path that you did. But again, first, a message from a group that you and I both know very well.
Embrace the laid-back charm of island life while sinking your toes in the sand and discovering real, authentic Florida in the Bradenton area. Unspoiled beauty and pristine beaches, a vibrant waterfront downtown energized by local arts and culture, fresh Floridian cuisine with a flourish of rich history, and friendly locals ready to welcome you to this preserved paradise on Florida's Gulf Coast. Plan your visit today at BradentonGulfIslands.com.
Welcome back to Saturday Conversations with Jason Mackey. That's the name of the podcast we're going with this week. Larry, the backstory there, we're trying to name this thing. And I've thought about a podcast to be named later. It used to be First 10, just kind of workshopping names. So if you have any suggestions, there will be an inbox or something, or a mailbox outside of the studio tonight. You can drop something in there.
All right. Let me noodle that.
I like that. I like that term. All right. So you were born in Millvale, correct? Raised in McCandless, went to North Allegheny, went to Clarion. That's what the Google tells me. But so you graduated from Clarion in 81. Started out doing some WTAE radio, KISS FM, did that for a while, joined KDKA TV in November of 88, sort of a morning show type thing. And then you guys reformatted around 90 to more of that newspaper style thing you said with Shumway. And then gradually you were there, did some weather, transition to the radio side in September 2001, if I'm not mistaken. I've been doing that. You've been doing a lot of things. I think in 2012, you started doing PA stuff at Acrisure Stadium. You do Pitt Radio Network, etc. What's your favorite thing that you do?
I'll tell you, it still is fun to, once you get up at 3 a.m. on weekday mornings, That's the hardest part of the job.
Yeah.
But there's still something about once you get rolling on the air to bring people, what's going on. And we don't do it. It's not super hardcore. And I'm not a talk show host, like the rest of the day parts into the night. We're kind of an island in that regard. And I get to meet and interview interesting people. And it's like a magazine show in the morning. So it should be somewhat of a safe zone because people need a little time. They don't want clobbered over the head with negativity either early. So that's been kind of my mantra. And somebody that goes way back is Jack Bogut, who's still with us. In fact, he's going to be inducted into the Pennsylvania Broadcast Hall of Fame in April. And he had a tone. He reminded me recently, we had lunch, and he said, and you'll appreciate this, Jason, because we think we live in turbulent times, and we do. But when he took the airwaves into the late 60s, Dr. Martin Luther King was just assassinated. Then Robert Kennedy, protests, the Vietnam War, the drug culture, the riots in the streets. And he came here when it seemed like the world was upside down. And he told me he wanted people listening. Certainly, we do the news and we cover those things, but to feel like they had a friend and it was a safer place to be. So there's plenty of negativity and plenty of people with attitude. I try to just be a little kinder and gentler in the morning.
That's appreciated, Larry. It's my sports translation of that would be I avoid politics in sports. I don't. I have my views. People have their views. I don't see why we should mix them. I know other people feel differently about that, but I'm very adamant. I'm not going to go on Twitter and tell you how I feel politically. Select few people even know how I feel politically. I don't know. I feel like sports is kind of that safe haven from that stuff where regardless of what you think, you don't need beat over the head with it while you're reading about your favorite baseball team or football team. And we have enough to complain about with our sports teams right now anyway.
Right. And I understand, and people love to put their 2 cents in. Social media obviously has changed the way that's done. You didn't have that option. And for the only option you had was Myron Cope's sports talk show back in the day on WTAE. And I worked with Myron for 6 years.
That's a pretty good Myron impersonation, by the way.
Jason Mackey needs a name for this podcast. We got to find one.
Wait a second. You just shifted back into a Pittsburgh accent.
Yeah, I know.
Can you do it if you try?
Oh, yeah.
I
mean, I'm a proud-born Yinzer.
I know, but you scrubbed it. You got rid of it. You talk extremely well, but you can let yourself slip back into it if you want. I love that.
Well, it's funny because I do imitate some voices, so I just do that for my own amusement. I had a brother, Dave, as a kid. He was really good at it, and I thought, man, and that's really how I got interested in broadcasting. He had the first cassette recorder that I ever saw, and he got it for Christmas, and he would record things, and we would record things, and play them for relatives when they would come, and they got a big kick out of it. So I guess that was the real genesis. And then I used to love to listen to sports. I had a transistor radio that I stuffed under my pillow with a little earphone. I used to love the fact that you could hear sports at night from certainly KDKA, but from Chicago, from New York. And,
wow.
That was a joy and excitement. I always loved sports. In fact, I did 3 years of play-by-play of football and basketball at Clarion when John Calipari was there.
Huh.
And what's really cool is I produced the Pitt football games when I was a young man out of college for 4 seasons when Ironhead Hayward was here in his 4 years. And here we are, the defensive captain of the Steelers is his son Cam, and I'm still working with Bill Hillgrove. So
yeah,
as long as Bill Hillgrove's around, I'm still the new kid.
That's true.
But that's where my passion for doing sports, you asked what's my favorite. There was just an excitement and a joy. And I get to do that by participating in the Pitt Football Network and working with Pat Bostic and Doran Dickerson. and Cale Berger and
Yeah.
doing what we do. And then to be the public address announcer for the Steelers at Acrisure, you feel like you're part of the excitement and with the scoreboard team there. So I'm so blessed to be able to do these things. And most of them, when you do them, you're kind of in a position where you have to push back reality. So it's a break mentally from, the reality and gravity of what's going on in the world.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the public address announcer end of things. Like, how does that work? What are you looking for? Who's around you? I know you could probably talk for 3 hours about what is involved in that process, but how would you describe what you're doing? Because people hear your voice, they recognize that voice, they know what you're saying, but like, I know it's just not as easy as sitting in a booth somewhere talking.
Well, I think my friends think I sit up there with a program and a 22-ounce glass of beer, but that's not
right. It's not.
It's a finely tuned machine for the scoreboard team, for the Steelers. And I take it very seriously. First of all, it's an honor to do it and a privilege. And I never lose track of that. I want to be as professional as I can. And in that role, it's about people hearing what you're saying because that's what's important. So your enunciation is a little more pronounced than it would be, just talking casually like we are now or on the radio. And then Chris Burns is the game day producer. I sit in the booth. The windows are open regardless of the weather because we have to feel kind of the atmosphere. And Chris's job is to run everything you see and hear in that stadium from gates open to the end of the game. He's right next to me. And then we have two spotters next to me, Bob Caldwell and Brandon Rossi, who's been a new addition in the last couple of years. And collectively, it's really with everybody else involved. I mean, there's technical stuff. There's 55 people that work for the scoreboard team.
55 people.
55
wow.
people. They have camera men and women. They have computer and graphics people. They have replay people. Every single thing is thought through. So to give you some idea, before the game, we get there 5 hours before kickoff. We check every headset, every microphone, make sure all the communications are in order. They check the sound, the video. Then we go through a pregame where you talk through every single element, the 2 hours leading up to kickoff and what's going to happen through halftime and the end of the game. And we start getting pumped up,
Yeah.
because our job, our mission is to make it as uncomfortable for the visiting team as possible and support the Steelers and enhance the fan environment and their experience. So that's the mission every time. It's a great experience and I love being a part of it, but I feel like driving in, I grab the coffee and then I feel butterflies like I'm playing in the game because I want to be my best and do my part as part of the team.
Very good. All right, Larry, we have one more segment. I want to talk a little Bradenton with you, a little bit about that area, some favorite restaurants, your role as the ambassador for that area, and also see if I can try to steal that off of you. But no, I'm kidding. First, a short break here to separate them. All right, emphasis on short there. But so correct me if I'm wrong. You are considered the quote ambassador to Bradenton, the Bradenton area, Anna Maria Island, right? Or what's the correct verbiage for what you do for them?
I am the official media ambassador for Bradenton, Anna Maria Island, and Longboat Key. So it is a designation that you could steal from me.
I want to know the moment that job goes up for application or something, Larry. I would love to throw my hat in the ring on that one.
Well, just to give you the background, KDKA used to be the full-time flagship of the Pirates. Now it's our brother station, The Fan, and we do also carry a number of games on KDKA. And when I first got the job, they sent me down there to do a week bringing back kind of the flavor of Bradenton. Who are the Pirates this year? Not the X's and O's like the fan would do, but more from a fan perspective, and just meeting the guys and talking to, the managers and coaches and players. So all these years go by, and Elliot Felcioni, who is the executive director of the Bradenton Convention and Visitors Bureau, is the tourism director. He would help us, make connections when we were there, and we became friends. And it turns out he worked for the Pirates. He's a Pittsburgh guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's been there 32 years. And so he also set up these concerts on Anna Maria Island. They have 5 or 6 a year. And Donnie Iris was there, and he asked me to MC the show. And the Grassroots were also performing. So when I went out on stage, Elliot said, "No, let me go first." And I'm like, "Oh, I got fired already." He went out there and he presented me with this ambassador award. And it was kind of cool because it's a manatee,
Oh, nice. Yep.
And then when I looked at it closely, the manatee's got this face like,
they all do, Larry. They all do.
Really sad face. So I get at Elliot about that, but that was kind of cool. Now it comes with really no official designation, but it's kind of like visiting the Wizard of Oz. But I have fallen in love with that area. In fact, I saw you there last year. We went to the Yankees game.
Yep.
And just the feel and atmosphere, especially this time of year, is magic. And the beaches are beautiful. And they just went through 2 hellacious hurricanes, unlike they've ever experienced before. No loss of life, fortunately, but it took them a while. But they've recovered tremendously. I would argue that if you go there, and I know you will, you can't tell they had 2 devastating storms. That's how good a job they've done. So every time I get to go to Bradenton, it's a treat.
Couldn't agree more, Larry. I'm counting down the days. I'm going March 8th for spring training. Andrew Destin's going to be back here for a week, and I get to sub out and enjoy my time down there. It can't come soon enough. It's just amazing. I've fallen in love with it too. The beaches are great. The people are even better. One of the things I love the most about down there is the food, though. I will go on a week-long seafood, just rip-roaring good time. I love it. But I wanted to ask you a few of your favorite spots down there. I know as writers covering spring training, we love to dish on where we go. This was great. This wasn't so great. Have to hit this spot. Have to hit that spot. When you go down there, where do you have to get to?
Sandbar would be
Okay.
number one, and I'm sure you've been there.
You know what, Larry? I've never been. It's
What?
on my list. I know. I've never
This
been to
is
the Sandbar.
outrage. It's on the northern end of Anna Maria Island, right on the beach.
Yeah.
And they had been closed for several months due to the storm damage, but they're open. And I was just there a week ago. We did a Yinzer comedy night at the Manatee Performing Arts Center last Friday night, actually. And then we had dinner at the Sandbar at sunset. And don't forget, over the Gulf, the sun sets right there. It was absolutely stunning. And, had blackened grouper. But if you like fish, obviously that's the place to go. And then there's some restaurants along the way. And if you go down to Longboat Key on the bay side, there's a restaurant called Shore.
Okay.
And
I've heard of that.
Beautiful vista. And then if you go to Lakewood Ranch, which is kind of between Bradenton and Sarasota, there's a place called Osteria, and Oysteria. The owners, 2 guys from Italy, spectacular food, and the atmosphere is amazing in this part of town that you will fall in love with. So those are my 3 recommendations.
I appreciate it. I will add some more to the pile. I do like the downtown Bradenton staples, the Pier 22s, the Oakenstones. What's the little, it's almost like a Greek place in the little downtown area.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Yeah. Drawing a blank.
I can't for the name.
All right. I can't either. But if you go out to Anna Maria, like Beach House is awesome. That's where I first saw the celebrating of the sunset, Larry. People are outside having dinner and like clapping and going out on the beach for the sunset. Ugly Grouper is another one of my favorites. Tide Tables, Starfish. Those are all like the sports writer haunts. What did the Bridge Street Tavern, I want to say, is another one. Island Time. We've gone there.
Wow.
A lot.
This is impressive.
I don't know about that. I feel terrible having never been to the Sandbar. I've always heard things about it. I've just never gone.
Please go. Even if you're going up to have a beer or two, it's worth going to see if you're on the island. And Bridge Street is great. There's some cool places, as you mentioned. And then really, you're so close. The drive is Anna Maria Island down to Longboat Key, down to Sarasota to St. Armand's Circle. And then they have some great restaurants there too.
Yeah. You cover a lot more area than I do. I've not gone down to St. Armand's Circle as much as I should. We used to stay in Sarasota, though. I think we stayed at the same place. Did you stay at the Crosley when you went down there?
Oh, yes.
The Crosley house?
Yes, this is the guy that owned the Cincinnati Reds. He's the guy that put up lights, had the first night game in baseball. He was a inventor of a high magnitude. He had even a line of appliances, radios he manufactured.
Yep.
He had a Crosley car, and he had a beautiful place there on the bay next to John Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey.
Yeah.
And he was a pilot, and they have a bunk house next to this opulent, beautiful place that's used, for certain events, as you know, Jason. And then the workers used to sleep in the bunkhouse. Well, they remodeled it, and that's where we stayed for a number of years. I don't know if you're aware of this, but it is haunted.
That is a ruse, Larry. It is not true. It is not haunted. At least I'm going to convince myself it's not haunted.
That's because you stayed there by yourself.
I know. I'm not totally by myself. It's just no other humans.
Right. And Mrs. Crosley still frequents.
Yeah. Oh, boy. All right. This was fun, man. Thanks so much. I appreciate this. Always a pleasure.
Well, thanks for having me on. And let me think about a title for your show here.
Yeah.
It'll come to me. But I really appreciate being a part of this and look forward to seeing you soon. And here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise in honor of America and welcome 6-time Grammy Award winner Jason Mackey.
I thought you were going to end that with somebody good, not me. Don't ruin that. You sound so good.
Thank you for attending.
I was going to take us out of there on that, Larry, but I shouldn't. I want to remind people to like and subscribe. You can get all of this content and so much more from our Post-Gazette, North Shore Drive, and YouTube teams. For Larry Richert, I'm Jason Mackey. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.